I live in an old house on the outskirts of the city, where the trees have long since stopped making noise for me, and the wind brings no memories, only cold. It, like everything around, passes through me indifferently. Once there was life here, children's laughter, conversations until the night, the smell of freshly baked bread and my hands holding this house on itself. Now there are only footsteps that echo off the walls, echoing my own existence. My name is Homer. I am a father. A grandfather. Once a man who was known and respected. Now I am an old shadow with a faded face. My children have everything, apartments in new buildings, cars, leather chairs in their offices. But for me they don't even have 5 minutes. The maximum is a brief "Hello, Dad," at Christmas or a drawn-out call once every few weeks. My grandchildren don't come. When I call I hear sighs. They are annoyed by my voice, my slowness, my presence. It's not their fault, they've just learned to see me as useless. In the store, the saleswoman throws away her change without looking me in the eye. The doctor in the clinic, the one who could be my son, speaks as if I'm a cabinet. "Well, what do you want at your age, Grandpa?" he throws, checking his phone. And I sit silent, clenching my fist in my pocket. Not from pain, from humiliation. I wake up early. Very early. A habit, you know. I used to get up to manage things, today just to be needed somewhere. I make myself some porridge, sit in the kitchen, read old newspapers. They're not new, but at least they don't laugh at me. Then I go to the park, not to walk, no. I look for eyes. Human eyes that could linger on me. Even for a moment. They don't linger. When the sun sets, I silently go into the house. It smells of emptiness. Once it was warm here. Now it's cold. From the batteries, from the walls, from the heart. I started writing. Not memoirs, no, don't make me laugh. I write so as not to forget. To remember who I am. And who they were. Names. Words. Dates. Little things. Insults. I don't know why yet. But I know that the silence of my house no longer means peace. It's like dark water. Underneath it, something is waking up. I wasn't always old. Once, not so long ago, at least for me, I stood in the middle of a storm, and the storm obeyed my voice. I had goals, ambitions, pride. My first hands in oil, when I was still repairing cars in a garage. Then, my first contracts, clients, risks. I didn't grow up thanks to the system, in spite of it. In the 90s, when everything was going wrong, I learned to survive. Without a single dad in the ministry. Without an uncle from the party. With my own sweat. And with my own pain. The business I created started with 3 people. Me, a mechanic, and an accountant. Then dozens. Then hundreds. I didn't steal. I negotiated. I didn't lie, I built trust. I was respected. I was approached. And I always kept my word. My wife, Katerina. She believed in me when I was still living in a rented room with oilcloth instead of wallpaper. We went through everything. Joys, losses, one burial, a son who didn't live to see 5. Then I thought the world would stop. But it didn't. And we didn't stop either. I raised my children with respect. I taught them to work. I taught them to be people. I gave them everything, education, apartments, a start in life. I even bequeathed the business when I felt that I couldn't pull it off on my own anymore. I handed over the reins, with tears in my eyes, but with faith that my sons would continue. Not only the business, but also the honor. But time is treacherous. It erases memory not only in the head, but also in the hearts of others. My sons became too busy. I became inconvenient for them. With my advice, remarks, stories that everyone has heard 100 times. I saw how they sighed when I called. How they talked with their eyes when I talked about how it used to be. My hands that built this house became shaking hands for them. My word, once the law, became murmurs. My experience, an unnecessary pile of memories. And then Claudia died. and the house finally cooled down. I was left alone among the furniture we bought together, among the photographs that are now gathering dust. The children were at the funeral. They didn't cry. They held on. Then they left silently, leaving behind a chair that held their scent for a few more days. I kept an old closet. There's her sweater. I still sometimes put it on the pillow next to me. Like a fool. Like an old man who lost not a woman but meaning. And then I felt for the first time how something slowly disintegrated inside me. Not the body, the soul. Not death, indifference. Those to whom I gave myself returned emptiness to me. And now, I sit in the kitchen, looking at the stain on the table and thinking, where did I break? And was I even whole? I am learning to be silent. It is not so difficult when no one is talking to you. But I remember everything. The faces, the voices, the contempt, the indifferent eyes. I am not a shadow. I am ashes that have not yet been extinguished. I'm not asking for much anymore. I don't expect calls, I don't expect visits. But even silence has its limit. A few weeks ago I fell in the bathroom. Not much, but enough not to get up right away. I lay there for 15 minutes, listening to the tap dripping. How the heart beats, how the body whines. After that, I called my eldest son, Stas. His voice was distant, cold. Well, Dad, be more careful. They told you to put a pen on the wall nearby. I'm busy, we'll talk later. Busy. I once heard him say this to subordinates. Now to me. His voice was not son's. He spoke as if to a client he didn't really want to see. Another time I asked my grandson to help me with the phone. New, complicated. I don't understand these icons. And he Pasha laughed. Right in the face. But what do you understand there, grandfather? You should only read the newspaper, and not tap iPhones. That laugh was like spit. Not loud, quiet, poisonous. Like the irony of fate, which is wrapped in a smile. I saw his eyes run over me. They did not delay. Like on the street. Like in a store. In the polyclinic, it is even worse. The doctor didn't even look up from the monitor. What is bothering you? My back hurts and my hands. It's age. Don't burden yourself. Following. But next. It wasn't contempt, it was indifference, cold, methodical. As a refusal to help a person who is no longer considered a person. As a mechanical deletion from the system. That evening I opened the old notebook for the first time. I used to keep work notes in it. Now it's different. I wrote down. Pasha. 14/10/2025. Laughter in the eyes. Remember. Further. Stas. 03/10/2025. Bath. Word busy. Remember. Dr. Kravchenko. Acceptance. Refusal. Tone. I wasn't looking for revenge. Not yet. But I didn't want it to go away. That I myself would become weak even for myself. The diary was filling up. Not every day. But each line was a deep nail into what was still human in me. Because each of them is mine. I raised them, taught them, protected them. And now. I am something extra. I sit in the silence of my home. It is no longer just empty, it is alive. She is breathing. And somewhere in this silence, a thought appears. And what if the shadow becomes mobile? What, how is silence not a weakness, but a tool? And then comes the realization, all these small deaths are not the end. This is the beginning. Slow, accurate, invisible. I was a construction worker. Now I will become the architect of payment. No tantrums. Without shouting. Because old age is not the end. This is another form of power. And I know how to use it. It happened in the fall. The air was damp, cold, with that smell of rotten leaves that reminds of death in all living things. I went to the city. I needed to buy medicine. A small thing, but it was a whole hike for me. I took bags, one for apothecary items, the other with apples from my garden. I was thinking of giving it to my grandchildren. as a gesture. Maybe a trifle, but old people look for meaning in such trifles. The bus stop was crowded. Young people are all on their phones, older people are silently waiting for the bus, looking at the asphalt. I stood aside, because I know that they do not see me. They don't want to see. People turn away from old age as if it were something contagious. The bus came up sharply. I took a step, but tripped over the curb. Packages fell apart. Apples rolled down the road. The cardboard box with the medicine was torn. I tried to get up, holding my knee. "Young man," I said to the boy next to me, "please help." He didn't even look. He just shrugged. And then laughter. Behind. The girl in the pink jacket whispered something to her friend, and they giggled. "Look, the grandfather has crumbled." It was short. Simply. But something in me stopped. Not the heart. No. On the contrary, it became cold as metal. I felt something dark, old, ancient, slowly rise up inside. What I hid for years under morality, honor, understanding, under "Be wise, Homer." That Homer was no more. I didn't shout. Didn't curse. Just looked at them. And suddenly I understood, the world does not see me, because I myself allowed it to be blinded. The world does not respect me because I have become quiet. And they trample the quiet ones. I packed the packages. Slow. Carefully. Every movement is like a ritual. I picked up the apple from the asphalt, wiped it with my sleeve. And then he smiled. Not anger. No. By cold peace of mind. At home I sat in the dark for a long time. Without light. No sound. And listened to how the house breathes. There is a shadow in every corner. But now she is not scary. She listens to me. Silence is my ally. That night I pulled out an old notebook. The same one where we once had business contacts. People who once served me, whom I once saved, who owed me not money a duty. I turned the pages, names, numbers almost all still alive. Some are retired, some are in the shadows, but they all remember who I am. And I understood, it's time to play. Not revenge, no. It will be justice. Not with a fist, not by force. And intelligence, experience, precision. They will not hear my cry because it will not be there. But they will feel the presence. Cold, invisible, precise. I know how to manipulate. I know how to press where it hurts. And I will not start with strangers. From relatives. Because they made me a ghost. And now I teach them to see. From that moment on, I no longer simply exist. I observe. I listen. I build. My first step was simple. I called Valerie, an old acquaintance from banking circles. We worked together on bypass schemes back in the 2000s. He said then, "Homer, you see 3 moves ahead." And he remembered. His voice was warm, almost joyful. "Are you still alive? How good to hear you." I did not reveal the plans. I simply asked for information. Innocent. Legal documents for a company that now belongs to my son Stas. Data that Stas himself would never have shown me. That's where it all started. I started pulling strings. At first, small things. An anonymous letter to the company's accounting department with a check. Then a leak of information about a dubious deal that broke Stas' plans for expansion. And everything looked like a coincidence. In the meantime, I called my wife's friend, a former journalist. Through him, I quietly arranged a series of materials about disrespect for elders in modern society. One example is medical neglect. And strangely enough, Dr. Kravchenko's name surfaced in the publication. Not from my lips, but from my hand. Onucha Pasha, I knew that he gambled. Once he even bragged to me that he was bypassing the system. And I left an anonymous trace for one of his teachers, a tip that the student was falsifying data in the scholarship system. No one accused him. But they started looking closely. And then the family. I made sure that my youngest son found out that Stas had hidden part of his inheritance after his mother's death. I prepared the documents a long time ago, but kept them. And I handed them over through an old notary whose business I had once saved. Now there is a rift between the brothers. And again, I have no use here. Just an accident. I remained in the shadows. I was silent. No one knew that it was I who was moving the levers. But I saw the result. They started calling me. At first, rarely. Then, more often. The words were different. "Dad, how are you feeling?" Pasha came. Silently. He brought a gift, apples. Mine. From my garden. Not even understanding how painful it was. And I sat. And listened. I did not forgive. But I accepted. I am not an avenger. I am a reminder. That old age is not a shadow. That a person's dignity does not disappear, even when they wear a hat with ears and forget where they put their glasses. I did not ruin anyone's life. But each of them saw themselves in the mirror, real, not painted over. And that was enough. My former partners offered more. They offered to make it louder, more painful. But I refused. I am not revenge. I am a lesson. And he who learned from me now learns from me. I expected someone to exclaim after my game, "That's how he put us in our place." Perhaps deep down I dreamed of some victory that would restore my former luster, when people looked at me with respect and my name mattered. But reality was quiet, like my entire life in recent years. No one applauded. No one hugged. No one took selfies with the hero, who had finally gotten his revenge. Instead, something else happened. Short, sharp phone calls. Sharp glances at dinner. Words that sounded not like an excuse but like an admission. We were wrong! And what followed were long, awkward pauses. My name no longer came up in conversation as an automatic fact. It mattered again, albeit because of the pain. Stas and his wife argued longer than usual. My youngest son trembled as he looked at the papers. Pasha became quieter, as if he had suddenly noticed that the boy who had laughed at his grandfather in the park was now looking in a different mirror, and seeing there not a funny old man, but a man with a history and methods. They learned, through shame, through loss of confidence, through unexpected tests and consequences. Was it worth it? Maybe not. But they began to count not only the benefits, but also the human cost. Society? It didn't change instantly. But the people who had previously passed by now held their gaze on my face a little longer. It wasn't the sympathy I once wanted, but something else, the realization that a person was standing in front of them. It was more than nothing. It was a beginning. I wasn't celebrating. Because my triumph wasn't about destroying them. I hadn't broken their lives. I had only opened a window through which they could see their own shadows. And the silence that followed my steps in the darkness was filled with a rustling, the noise of doubt, the fear of losing what they considered their safety. It was not fun. It was fair. The night it all happened, I sat by the window for a long time. The moon was thin as an old knife. I thought about Katerina, about her hands, about how we once held each other in bed during a thunderstorm. I thought about what I had given to my children, and what they had given me in return. And I understood a simple thing: my strength is not in punishing, but in being an example of what should not happen. My task is to remind. I have learned not to forgive. It sounds cruel, but real life sometimes requires sober severity. Forgiveness is a gift that should come when it is sincere. When it changes. I saw some of my children's features change, not all of them, not all at once, but something began to crack and reveal itself. And that was better than complete silence. I wasn't looking for revenge as an excuse for evil. I was looking for an awakening. And at the same time, I learned not to destroy. I gave up the desire to destroy. It's a fine line. Revenge that turns into destruction makes you equal to those who hurt you. I didn't want that. When you stay in the shadows and play the game through reason and trial, the responsibility is greater. You see the consequences. And sometimes the most powerful action is to leave a person the opportunity to choose, even if their choice is painful. My revenge was a lesson. Tough, cold, but fair in its essence. It made them stop and reconsider their roles. I did only what I knew how to do. I used experience, connections, knowledge of human weakness and pride. No edge, no noise. Only a mirror. When the days came when I felt the temptation to descend into darker waters again, I stopped. Because I understood, I had already done my part. Everyone must face their own choice, their own responsibility. I was not a judge, and I did not want to be one. Only that old person who reminds me that dignity also requires defending. Now, when I go out into the yard and see young people boldly following their own paths, I do not feel devastating contempt or a desire to turn back time. There is another feeling, a calm confidence that I have the last power left, the right to demand respect and the right to dignity. And when I am asked if I am happy, I answer truthfully, I did not seek happiness in this game. I sought balance. And perhaps a little peace. In the end, old age is another form of strength. It comes not from muscles, but from memory, from understanding, from patience. And sometimes from cruel wisdom. I was given life, I gave life. Now I demand only one thing, to be noticed. So that my name is not taken out of context, consigned to the dustbin of oblivion. Is that too much? I will put this notebook on the shelf. The names will still remain there, as a reminder of my steps. I do not celebrate. I do not sing victory songs. But when in the eyes of the young doctor who used to mock me, I see another expression, not reverence, but perhaps fear and understanding at the same time, I know my word counts again. And if sometimes my silence is more decisive than a shout, then so be it. Because sometimes the power of old age is not a punishment, but the last and most serious demand on people, to remember each other's dignity. I am Homer. Once strong, then forgotten, now the one who taught me to look in the mirror. And this is perhaps my best victory. I gave my life. Now I demand only one thing, to be noticed. That my name not be taken out of context, consigned to the dustbin of oblivion. Is that too much? I will put this notebook on the shelf. The names will still remain there, as a reminder of my steps. I do not celebrate. I do not sing victory songs. But when in the eyes of the young doctor who used to mock me, I see another expression, not respect, but perhaps fear and understanding at the same time, I know my word counts for something again. And if sometimes my silence is more decisive than a cry, then so be it. Because sometimes the power of old age is not a punishment, but the last and most serious demand on people, to remember each other's dignity. I am Homer. Once strong, then forgotten, now the one who taught me to look in the mirror. And in this, perhaps, is my best victory. I gave my life. Now I demand only one thing, to be noticed. That my name not be taken out of context, consigned to the dustbin of oblivion. Is that too much? I will put this notebook on the shelf. The names will still remain there, as a reminder of my steps. I do not celebrate. I do not sing victory songs. But when in the eyes of the young doctor who used to mock me, I see another expression, not respect, but perhaps fear and understanding at the same time, I know my word counts for something again. And if sometimes my silence is more decisive than a cry, then so be it. Because sometimes the power of old age is not a punishment, but the last and most serious demand on people, to remember each other's dignity. I am Homer. Once strong, then forgotten, now the one who taught me to look in the mirror. And in this, perhaps, is my best victory.